This week, the Renegades move from the mountains of West Virginia into the mountains of Pennsylvania. The Roundup is next. Renegade Monster Truck fans, for the second straight event, we are in Beckley, West Virginia at the Beckley Motorsports Park, a beautiful part of the country with 6 of the biggest, baddest machines on the planet. Hi again, everyone. I'm Nick Davis along with Matt Isbell. And Matt, we've had a great tour so far this year. Corey Snyder came into this weekend with the checkered flag, but he got it taken away from him by a guy who loves taking that checkered flag away from that guy specifically.
The funniest part is Zane during drivers' meetings always talking about, like, I'm going to take that checkered flag back. Or like when he has it, it ain't coming off my truck. So Zane loves holding that checker flag, and hey, it paid off for him in that first event here this afternoon. And we're just gonna have to see what happens here tonight, because there's other drivers that are like, all right, we're tired of this. Like, other drivers want to take that checker flag from Zane and Corey. They're tired of them two just holding the flag.
Corey Snyder took the freestyle victory, had a little trouble during the racing bracket, battery issues. Joe Lockhart had issues, thought he had a steering problem. Turns out he had a broken axle in their locker. They got that fixed with little time to spare, but CJ Ritu, he had one of the coolest saves we've seen this year.
Dude, CJ Ritu, 14 years old, coming out here on the track, and he's just hitting the track, and his dad's just telling him in his ear, like, hit the van, and he comes out, and then he has a save. Like, his freestyle run was a great freestyle run for his very first time in a full-size monster truck.
We got something special, though, coming up for this show.
We got a lot of things coming up that's going to be real special. You know, we got some freestyle obstacles that are changed, and that's the thing I love about the Renegade Monster Truck Tour. Not one show is the same. Every event is different, and the drivers all want to come out each event and give the best event possible for all the fans and all the fans of you watching at home on Back Channel Productions of the Renegade Monster Truck Tour.
Always appreciate those live plugs from Matt Isbell. That was a little bit earlier. We're going to take a look at our best trick competition highlights. Joe Lockhart going to take us into action here in Burlington, looking for that checkered flag. He's not been able to put a full event together all year long, but he starts off slinging some West Virginia clay all over Beckley Motorsports Park. A strong opening statement, but he wasn't done with that. That's one thing he's been working on. He's been getting those donuts down, but the other thing is his two-wheel program. Kind of getting the hang of the stoppies there. Not quite what he was looking for, but good enough for a score of 16 to take the lead at this point, as Virginia Giant, Master of Disaster, and Pretty Wicked had already put up scores on the board. Right behind him, though, the boss man, ATI Performance Products, Stinger Unleashed, Zane Ritu out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He saw Joe going for the stop. He said, I'm going to outdo you, brother, and he did so. Riding that one out and then finishing up his best trick run with one of his awesome wheel stands, carrying the checkered flag off the back of the Stinger Unleashed machine out of Lancaster. 1 point up on Lockhart with a score of 17, and then flew around the backstretch on the high banks of Beckley Motorsports Park with one more truck to go. Corey Snyder in Toxic lost the checkered flag, show number 1 in Beckley, looking to try to get it back on the back of the black and green Ford out of Bethesda, Maryland. Always solid sky wheelies out of that big chassis. And keep in mind, this would be the last time we would see the OG Toxic on the Renegade Monster Truck Tour. One more big hit just for good measure. Wouldn't go toward his score, but he did lay down an awesome run. And we get him in the upper half of the field. Corey Snyder laying down a score of 15 in the best trick competition. Zane Ritu and Stinger Unleashed taking the victory there and working ever closer to back-to-back victories. The ATI Performance Products Stinger Unleashed on into round 1 of racing. You saw Cliff Fowle in the Virginia Giant get set up to take on Leon Hostetter in Master of Disaster. Cliff got beat by Leon, show number 1, but he gets the leap off the starting line and the jump on Leon. Here in round number 1 is show 2, and a good win for Cliff Fowle in the Hemi-powered Virginia Giant. Second matchup of round number 1 saw father and son CJ Ritu in Pretty Wicked rolling to the line in the left lane. He would take on Zane Ritu, who had won the best trick competition in the ATI Performance Product Stinger Unleashed, and this was a close matchup. At first glance, it almost looked like Zane got the measure of him, but the upset will go the way of the youngster. CJ Ratu, in his second competitive race program, would pick up a round one victory by about 6 inches. In the powder coating specialist, Pretty Wicked knocking off his father in the ATI Performance Products Stinger Unleashed. Our final match of round one saw Toxic taking on Joe Lockhart and barely tame both of these guys after the checkered flag. Lockhart inching ever closer to an overall event victory here with that victory in racing as we move on to the semifinal round. Cliff Val and Virginia Giant slated to take on CJ Ratu in Pretty Wicked, but you can see there was some activity, a little drama before this race as CJ could not get the truck fired. The rules would allow him to drop to the bottom of the bracket if need be, as we had 4 trucks left to go in the semifinal round. His father, Zane Ratu, and Stinger Unleashed was sitting there in wait as he was supposed to take on Joe Lockhart and barely tame. However, Zane would come around for this matchup with Cliff Val and Virginia Giant to give CJ just a little more time to get ready. And Zane would make short work of Cliff Val and the Giant. However, Cliff hung in there with him, trying to get that race program back up and running, bring the Virginia Giant name back to where he thinks it should be. As we move back to the pit area, you can see working to get CJ's trucks fired. We see the thumbs up. Kevin Rico, Jay Snyder, Team Toxic, as well as Buddha back there, Leon Hostetter, everybody working to get this kid back to the line. They wanted to see if they could get that 95 Ford into a championship race. If he did get there, it'd be a rematch with his father, Zane Ratu and Stinger Unleashed. But first, he'd have to try to knock out Joe Lockhart, and the Schroeder torsion bars barely tame. And the move to the left in no man's land made it no good for CJ Ratu. Joe Lockhart heads on to a championship race with Zane Ratu. So it'd be the Schroeder torsion bars barely tame taking on that vehicle right there, the ATI Performance Products Stinger Unleashed. Zane Ratu, he's had an overall event victory this year, and there is a guy who would love to put that championship flag on the back of his truck, Joe Lockhart in barely tame. Who would come out on top at Racing Beckley show number 2? Another close race, but it was clear-cut at the end. Joe Lockhart in barely tame is your race winner. Show number 2 in Beckley, and he would carry that momentum on into freestyle. Could he get the win? We'll find out when we come back here on the Roundup. Little check over the equipment in between action here in Beckley, West Virginia as they get these trucks ready for freestyle. We'll be bringing you highlights from that portion of our competition here in a moment. Joe Lockhart just making sure that that truck was ready to go. They had fixed a steering problem that he had a little earlier. It was actually being caused by a broken axle, as we said at the top of the show. And there you see Corey Snyder tightening up some champagne bolts. That would end up being a story later on in the action. Now, our final round in the Renegade Road Rippers on this night. night in Beckley would pit Zachary Graybeal in the far lane and Twisted Metal up against Matt Boyer in Hitchhiker's Ride. Of course, Matt, he's had a couple wins this season on the Renegade Monster Truck Tour with the Renegade Road Rippers, but Zachary Graybeal would get the best of him in the final turn. A close race up to that point, but Graybeal would drive away and Twisted Metal with the Renegade Road Rippers victory. And that brings us right back to Monster Trucks, the Renegade Monster Truck Tour freestyle action. Leon Hostetter trying to put up an early number in the Wayne's Towing and Recovery Master of Disaster Chevy-bodied Richard Midget-powered machine out of Pennsylvania. Leon out of Palmyra, flying high in Master of Disaster. See the hood kind of flopping around. Keep your eye on the front end of this truck because Leon was not done just yet. We thought he was going to bring it around to the front stretch and park it. That's not what he did. Comes back up the middle, another big hit on the van stack, and off goes the hood. Doing a great job of not running over it and smashing it up any more than it already was. A score of 15 would put him in the lead for the moment. Right behind him, though, the new generation, CJ Ratu out of Lancaster, in the powder coating specialist Pretty Wicked 95 Ford. Going a little bit bigger this time around than he did in show number 1. Had a great save in the afternoon event here in Beckley. Doing a great job here trying to get to that number 1 spot. And that camper was sitting nice and fresh for him. He actually cleared it. He wanted to jump through it. He drove right over the roof, kind of tore the wall down. Coming back to the top side, throwing a little dirt at the camera crew. CJ Ratu cut loose. The powder coating specialist, Pretty Wicked Ford. One more big hit. It looked like he had a broken axle shaft right there as he spun it around. I'm not sure which one, but you saw the sparks come out from underneath when he hit the ground. Good run, though. A score of 13, though, did not get him in the lead. You see Nate Pebley in the skid steer working his way to the other side of the track. He's just coming back from loading Leon Hostetter's hood on the trailer. Now, Joe Lockhart, barely tame. He's in good position at this point in this event to get the checkered flag. Would he be able to do it? I can tell you right now, this was a solid freestyle with a lot of hang time. You can see he's got a problem, though, on the rear end. You see some fluid leaking out back there. We were a little worried it would hamper him, but he's running the truck hard. Massive hang time. The truck's soaking it up nicely. Joe Lockhart and the Schroeder torsion bars barely tame, working the track to perfection. Lockhart's experience starting to show as he gets a little more seat time. Last year, he may have backed up right there. Instead, flipped it into a donut and then gets some massive hang time coming across the track. Lockhart laid down a marathon freestyle in Beckley, West Virginia, hitting just about anything in his way. I do believe he made it to pretty much every obstacle. Raising the bar for the fans here in Beckley, making the judges think a little bit. Had the donuts, had the big air. He needed one more thing. Show off the two-wheel skills. Probably the best stoppie we've seen from Joe all season long. And with that, he would come back around for one more hit on the race lanes, head back up to the front stretch, and wrap up an awesome run at the wheel of the Schroeder Torsion Bar's barely tamed Ford. Engine and transmission getting hot Joe comes out to the cheer of the crowd with a score of 18 to take the number 1 spot. Up next, though, the guy trying to keep the checkered flag on the back of his truck. Zane Ritu in the ATI Performance Products Stinger Unleashed out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He put down a very different freestyle from everyone in front of him. Tremendous ground speed, dirt track all the way around as he just did hot laps for the first half of his freestyle. Something different, trying to change it up for the crowd here. Ritu, though, did not disappoint on this night. And Beckley, again, trying to keep it in the number 1 spot. Didn't end up where he wanted it to in racing. Came out second, so he still has a shot at this point to hang on to that checkered flag. Out of the 4 trucks that have carried this Stinger Unleashed name, this is the best landing, best handling truck he's ever had, this metal shop chassis. And it's definitely showing. As Zane wraps up his run, he wasn't done for the night. He would factor in to the program a little bit later. But he would finish up his run there. Not enough to take the lead, and that would hurt him. A score of 13, and that would leave the deciding factor in the hands of this guy, Corey Snyder. Did not really have any hope of taking the checkered flag, but depending on where he finishes will be the deciding factor between Lockhart and Ritu. Now, unbeknownst to the fans and unbeknownst to us, an attempt at a little tandem freestyle. And remember, CJ Ritu gets hooked up on those race lines and show number 1. Over goes Zane Ritu. Stinger Unleashed, dumping it on the backstretch. Corey Snyder would continue his freestyle on the other side of the track while Ritu was extricated from the cab of the Stinger Unleashed machine. Getting a little bit wild, but I think that might have backfired as he just helped Corey Snyder pick up a little bit more toward his overall score. And Snyder playing spoiler, that was the last thing that Zane wanted to do. Again, this would be the last hurrah for this Patrick Chassid OG Toxic. You can see the smoke starting to roll out of the back of it. This thing has had quite a storied history in this sport, running this Toxic name. And you see the smoke rolling out from underneath. Corey was not about to stop. Keep in mind those champagne bolts he was tightening up in between competitions. Corey said that housing might be on borrowed time. Would prove to be true by the end of this night. If you look at the left front tire, it is starting to get a little lean. Corey Snyder was not about to put this one to bed without a fight. Snyder working the track as best he can, sideways over the van stack and back down. Whipping it around, the transmission is red hot. You can see that left front is about to let go. He stopped it just in time. One more hit, and that front end may have been sitting on the ground. Corey Snyder would take the freestyle victory. To the cheer of the crowd, you see a little flash fire underneath. That would be extinguished. But what a night we had wrapping up our weekend in Beckley, West Virginia as the fireworks went off. The scores were tabulated, and everybody waited to see who would walk out of here with the checkered flag. Zane Ritu's Stinger Unleashed looking a little worse for wear after a wild night. Again, didn't do himself any favors, and he definitely helped Corey Snyder pick up a few extra points. And as the night came to a close, proud of his son right there for handling driving duties of Pretty Wicked, but the overall championship would go to Joe Lockhart. He finally snagged the checkered flag, and it would go onto the back of the Barely Tame machine, the Schroeder Torsion Bars Barely Tame machine. He would carry that on into Muncie, Indiana, where he would take another win Following up Muncie, we go to Brookville, and that is where we are headed next as we show you some of the carnage that was left behind in Beckley, West Virginia. Renegade Monster Truck fans, welcome to the heart of the Alleghenies. We are once again in the Keystone State, different part of the Keystone State, and a place we'll visit again. But for the first time, the Renegade Monster Truck Tour hits Brookville. And Matt, this is going to be a different show than we've seen all year long.
This is going to be incredibly different because there's some surprises, and this track looks amazing for the Rippers and our monster trucks. I am so excited and pumped up.
This is a great facility. The grandstands are huge. The fans are filling in. The track party's been going great, but you talked about the track, something similar to Marietta, but very different. There is no room, really, to get yourself settled down for that second jump, so these guys are going to have quite a time navigating this race course.
You're absolutely right. These drivers got to be on point when it comes to coming over that roller and setting themselves in no man's land to make it over that jump, because there are some top contenders here for the weekend.
And let's talk about some of the contenders. Cliff Val's back in action here this weekend. He's been getting better and better. He's been battling some engine problems, but he does seem to get better each time out. And when he fired the truck up earlier to bring it out for the track party, the engine sounded great. But I also want to talk about the guy who comes in here with the checkered flag.
That's Joe Lockhart, man. He's got 2-week streak right now. 2 weeks, Muncie, Indiana, and then Beckley, West Virginia. He's on that roll, but he's got some new competition here tonight because we have a driver that's debuting on the Renegade Monster Truck Tour.
It's Ryan Disharoon, the Saigon Shaker. Very excited to have him. They rolled in at the last minute. If you're going to replace a good truck, nothing against the guy who was supposed to be here. He's an awesome truck. You got to get the best you can find.
And Flying Ryan does not mess around. I was talking to him a little bit ago down on the track, and he's like, Matt, I have not done an event in 1 year and 3 months. I am ready to be behind the wheel and take a victory tonight.
And one more thing about that truck, another metal shop chassis that's debuting this year.
These guys just put out the best equipment, and it's metal shop chassis. It's metal shop chassis because that's a brand new Stinger Unleashed metal shop chassis. Man, the competition tonight's going to be tough. I'm so pumped up. I'm ready to go, man.
There really was just something electric about this night in Brookville, Pennsylvania. Beautiful weather. We'd had a string of just awesome weather after a string of wet and cold weekends at some other tracks. Colton Kaiser out of Indianapolis, Indiana, of course, back at the wheel of Pretty Wicked, the 95 Ford, the powder coating specialist machine out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he would open things up with a score of 12, a strong showing with that pair of wheel stands over the race lanes, getting to pick on some fresh cars. Then Cliff Val showing off the Hemi horsepower in the back of the Virginia Giant out of the Old Dominion. Cliff out of Fairfax, Virginia, out near the DC metro area. And Cliff trying to show him how it's done. Really been picking up his game with this truck lately. Getting good at whipping it into some donuts, trying to get it into cyclone territory. Tough to do when you run an open front end, but Cliff looking good out there in the Virginia Giant. Put up a number of 10, though. Not enough to get him into the lead. Up next, the rookie, Leon Hostetter out of Palmyra, Pennsylvania, came out of the ranks of the tough trucks to drive one of the most awesome machines in the business, the Wayne's Towing and Recovery Master of Disaster, and he's been doing a great job of bringing this legendary name back to the forefront. Big sky wheelie right on the wheelie bar, followed it up with some awesome donuts. That wasn't all, though. Not sure which moves in this run were scored, but Leon was not done. Trying out some new dance moves there. Put up a score of 13. Leon Hostetter and Master of Disaster. Right behind him, though, Joe Lockhart has been working on his stoppies. He got a good one there. Bettered the one that we saw the previous event in Beckley, West Virginia. Now, keep in mind, Joe carried that checkered flag from Beckley to Muncie, Indiana, and then again took a victory there over a field that included Jerry Beck in Dirt Crew, Quad Chaos, and Master of Disaster. Joe trying to keep the flag on the truck for one more week if he can. Puts up a good number early, a score of 16. The guy right behind him, though, Zane Ritu out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He and Joe had kind of been at each other's throats on social media. It was more about racing, but that checkered flag is certainly something everybody wanted, and Zane opened things up with that awesome stoppie, walking it out down the track, kind of back and forth there. It looked pretty cool, and he was not done at that because we know he can cut out some awesome donuts, and he did so. The ATI Performance Products Stinger unleashed with a score of 17 to take the number one spot. He wants that checkered flag at that point, away from Joe Lockhart and Barely Tame, the newcomer to the tour, but a guy who could definitely get the job done, Ryan Disharoon. But for all the fanfare that we gave Saigon Shaker at the top of the show, this would not be their weekend. I'm telling you right now, this would be one of two short-lived runs that he would land on the track. In fact, this would end up being longer than his freestyle run. But not to worry, this was not Ryan's last showing on the tour. He would be back in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, and he would put on a clinic. But right now, the transmission in this machine is not happy. The motor sounds good, but the transmission is not cooperating. At this point, we thought he may have just given up on the best trick run, trying to feel the truck out, see what's wrong with it, get it running for the rest of the night. But as he tried to whip it into a few donuts, the truck decided he would not make the racing bracket. Big plume of smoke on the end of the track right there. We thought that was the end of Saigon Shaker. He would get it back for freestyle, but a score of 11 really hurt any contention he might have going in to the rest of this event to try to get that checkered flag on the back of his truck. He did not make the racing bracket. Meanwhile, pair of teammates here, the patriarch of the Ritu Motorsports clan, the ATI Performance Products Stinger Unleashed, Zane Ritu, taking on the young gun, Colton Kaiser and Pretty Wicked. Another different track than we've seen the rest of the year. You saw that kind of center roller there in no man's land just to upset the trucks a little bit. Zane Ritu taking that victory on in to the semifinal round. Joe Lockhart would get a bye run in the first round because of Ryan Disharoon's problems. Joe, though, did not take it easy. Laid down a shot, and you can see at the end, it might be hard to see in the other lane from Joe, in the left lane, you actually have to thread the needle through those freestyle obstacles, so you better make sure you're straight and true when you head toward that finish line. First semifinal round matchup. Zane Ritu with Stinger Unleashed taking on the Master of Disaster that is Leon Hostetter. Leon has had a decent season at the seat of this truck. The rookie, though, gets outrun there with a big leap toward the finish line. Again, having to thread that needle. Now, I point out threading the needle because of this run. Watch Cliff Fowl in the left-hand lane up against Joe Lockhart in Barely Tame. Cliff gets off to the left-hand side, manages to lock it up before he does any real damage, but had he really poured it on over the finish line, he'd have been in big trouble, and that set up our final round. Joe Lockhart and Zane Ritu, who had really just been at each other all week long on social media, met on the starting line in the final round, but drama followed them. Joe Lockhart shut the truck off for an RAI test. It did not refire. You see Daniel Clark walking over to find out what's going on with Joe. CJ Ritu heads out with the jump box, hoping that they can get this machine refired and to the starting line. He had technically sat in the staging area, so he was able to gain a couple points that way. But would those points be enough to help Joe keep that checkered flag on his truck, or would Zane Ritu be able to grab the checkers back, or would it go to somebody else? Sean Baker rolls out in the loader. Nothing they could do. His 5 minutes was up, and that look says it all. Joe Lockhart watching potential points slip away. So as the crowd looked on, we waited to see who would come back to the starting line. Well, we get a rematch of the semifinal round race between Leon Hostetter and Zane Ritu. Now, the drama wasn't over. Hostetter pulls up to the line. Zane had shut down to wait for that other truck to pull out. Now you see Daniel Clark headed over to Stinger Unleashed. The ATI Performance Products machine now will not refire. So, out came CJ again with the jump box. The drama building. Would we get yet another competitor on the starting line? Where would the points go? We've seen trucks get towed off throughout the season, but this was probably the most drama-fueled final round race of the season. Watch for the puff of smoke out from underneath to signify that the truck is refired. See the lane light? They back off. We've got fire. Now, Zane's got to get the truck to the line. Try to build just a little bit of heat in that engine. Try to get that horsepower up and get it down the track. A final round race that we did not expect between Zane Ritu and the ATI Performance Products Stinger Unleashed and Leon Hostetter in Master of Disaster. Hostetter looking much stronger in that matchup than he did in the semifinal round, but Zane Ritu inching ever closer to pulling that checkered flag off the back of Barely Tame and putting it on the ATI Performance Products. Stinger Unleashed just grabbed himself another bunch of points toward his overall total. Already had picked up 40 from the best trick competition, put himself another 25 on the board right there. The Battle of Brookville continues next on the Roundup.
Looking for quality graphics? Look no further than Bradley Shaw Designs, specializing in graphic designs for banners, vinyl wraps, posters, promotional items, and more. Bradley Shaw Designs is the exclusive digital graphics partner of the Renegade Monster Truck Tour and Ritu Motorsports. For more info, check out BradleyShawDesigns.com.
Back with more from an awesome weekend of action in Brookville, Pennsylvania as the Renegade Monster Truck Tour keeps it going here in 2021. Jefferson County Fairgrounds. Now we're going to move over to the Renegade Road Rippers semi-final round action in the near lane. The black Jeep, that is Twisted Metal. Zachary Graybill on the far side making an aggressive pass. That's Josh Funk in the Young Gun, and keep your eye on the Young Gun. He goes a little bit wider than he needs to in this corner, and now he's got to lay it on to try to come back. Somehow ended up on top of the monster truck race lanes. I don't know if he had kept going straight, if he could have made it all the way over. The crush car's Funk was A-OK. He's had some wild, wild rides at the wheel of these tough trucks. We'll take another look at it. You'll see, again, he goes way further down the track than he needed to. Graybill cuts in on him. Funk trying to make up the difference. Thought he was going to thread the needle. Wasn't clear at all. Drove right up the ramp and onto the crush cars, dumping it over on its side once the undercarriage caught on the painted metal of those crush cars, it was all over for Josh Funk. Our other semifinal round matchup, Karina Wallish at the wheel of Wildflower taking on her fiance, that is Matt Boyer in Hitchhiker's Ride. Pair of drivers out of Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Wallish looking good here in action in Brookville, Pennsylvania. Sliding across the finish line, safe at home, and she would go right back to the starting line to take on your last winner, that is Zachary Graybeal in Twisted Metal. Wallish trying to lay one down for the ladies, and she was definitely motoring on this night in the Keystone State. Wildflower taking the victory. The Renegade Road Rippers competition in Brookville, Pennsylvania. You see a tire went down there on Twisted Metal and not help him at all. Now we take a look at our Wayne's Towing and Recovery Minis. This is Leah Hostetter at the wheel of Pretty Wicked, standing it up and walking it on down the track off the back of one of those monster truck race rollers. Here comes Garrett, member of the Ratu family at the wheel of Virginia Giant. He's had some awesome runs, of course. Keeping it rolling on up and over the popper ramp, much to the delight of the crowd. But the move of the night in Brookville, Pennsylvania would come not from the Monsters, not from the Road Rippers, but from the Wayne's Towing and Recovery Minis. This is Peyton at the wheel of Master of Disaster. Watch this. What a move for the young driver out of Palmyra, Pennsylvania. Has the self-center off. She's just letting it eat. She wasn't done, though. With the fans in her ear, she takes a wild ride down to wrap up her freestyle run. She has a bright future in the monster truck industry. Peyton, the wheel of Master of Disaster. Now, with the fans rocking, you can hear the reaction to those minis. They were revved up for Renegade Monster Truck Freestyle. First up in Freestyle will be none other than the young driver out of Indianapolis, Indiana. The hotshot, Colton Kaiser in Pretty Wicked, would open up Renegade Monster Truck Freestyle, and he put on a clinic, and the powder coating specialist, Pretty Wicked, opened up with such a strong run, it seemed like nobody was going to get past him. We're just going to sit back and let you watch some of these highlights, but this kid was on it in the Keystone State. Getting himself hung up a little bit right there on a fresh van stack. Now, when you get yourself in a situation, a lot of drivers start to get a little frustrated, get a little angry, and that's when the driving goes through the roof, and you see it right there. Colton Kaiser starting to get the big hang time. He's picking up the momentum. Keep an eye on this truck, though. You see that racing roller? He just went around. It would come into play, and he would experience something for the first time at the wheel of one of these 12,000-pound monster truck racing giants as he wheels this truck around very well spatially oriented driver. But as the sun goes down and the chalk gets wiped off the track, these obstacles get harder and harder to see. Before he would go back over, they go, he'd do this. Trying to make that his signature. Got it on his first try, and he won't stop doing it. But, as I said, couldn't see it, caught the race roller, and over goes Pretty Wicked. Now, Lindsay Ratu told him, do not mess that Ford visor up. Colton rolled on the down bars, didn't even touch it, came out of the truck with a score of 16 to start our freestyle competition here with the Renegade Monster Truck Tour, and you can hear the fans are absolutely loving it as he left a little bit of gear on the track there.
What was going through your mind? Not a whole lot, I'll be honest with you. You're moving a little too fast to say, I can't think what the harness is not keep enough for that amazing call, but amazing safety equipment. I can't type of thing. I was just getting up the truck guys enough. They're out there building the best trucks in the industry right now. Right now, I couldn't have been more safe, and truck like that. So, it's awesome. And I must say, when if you're out there listening, hey, the visor's perfectly okay. She told me at the beginning of the year there's a brand new visor to that truck. Those drivers got visors, and four guys, and those are kind of getting hard to find. So it's all right, I'm all right, the truck's all right. Are you fans all right?
So he would start things off strong right behind him, going after the kid. This is the rookie, Leon Hostetter, master of disaster, now trying to step up to match what his daughter did earlier on in the Master Mini, and Leah, his other daughter, at the wheel of Pretty Wicked. You could see Leon was coming after Colton hard at the wheel of Master of Disaster. The Wayne's Towing and Recovery Chevrolet out of the state of Pennsylvania. Leon starting to have some mechanical failures right there. The rear steering not working for him, and unbeknownst to him, he's got an axle shaft that broke. I believe on the left front. You'll see it starting to pull the truck to the side as he comes around. You can see it rolling right there. The left front not pulling, so every time he gets on the brakes, the truck starts to slide around on him. They did water this track to try to keep the dust down. This is some chalky dirt here in the western part of Pennsylvania. Hostetter, though, serving notice that he would not go quietly into this night, getting some huge hang time, bouncing down in Master of Disaster. However, with the problems he had, was only able to score a 13. Then it was Joe Lockhart's turn, carrying the checkered flag. After two successful runs, 2 weeks in a row at the wheel of Barely Tame, Lockhart was able to bring the checkered flag for the third straight week into his home state, not too far from home, and he wanted to put on a show for the home state folks. Captured the flag in Breckley, West Virginia, as you saw, hung on to it in Muncie, Indiana. 3 weeks of good weather, and Joe seemed to finally get a handle on how to get that checkered flag on the back of this big blue Ford. The Schroeder torsion bars barely tame. Working this track beautifully with the Cohen chassis, with the Richard Midget horsepower in the back. The big blue Ford out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, being driven by the man out of Oil City with the dirt track background, a background moto. Does not matter. He loves to go racing. He loves to compete. And another one showing that he was ready to try to send this truck into low orbit. He's been getting better and better with those stoppings. Schroeder torsion bars barely tame, work the track in front of the crowd. Would it be enough, though, to keep the flag on the back of the truck for another week? Joe's searching a little bit, trying to find that dirt. Gets a little tacky in the middle, a little loose on the outside. Didn't want to hook an edge and roll it over. Slinging it into a donut there. Looking for some way to wrap this awesome run up and try to put himself on top of the points. Here in Brookville, one of the best stoppies we've seen him do at the wheel of that big bad Ford out of Pennsylvania. Kicking up the Keystone soil as he roars around and wraps up an awesome run. Joe Lockhart would take the lead from Colton Kaiser with a score of 17. There were 2 trucks left in the field. Joe coming out to the cheer of the crowd. This guy, Zane Ritu, chomping at the bit to get that checkered flag off the back of that big blue Ford. Stinger Unleashed was ready to roll in Brookville, Pennsylvania, and he brought the thunder. That right there has really become his specialty. Now, he's known for the stoppies, the moonwalks, but one of my favorite things to watch that truck do is really stand it up and walk over the race lanes. You can see he can do it over the bus stacks too. Zane Ritu working every inch of this track as he comes right over in front of our end zone camera. Zane pushing this brand new metal shop chassis to the limit. You can see the body's a little worse for wear, of course, from that rollover in Beckley, West Virginia. This truck got a week off in Muncie, Indiana. Zane back at the wheel and ready to go, freshened up, but was the truck at 100%. Shuts down right there. He's starting to lose oil pressure. Keep that in mind. Zane was not done. He wasn't ready to concede the score just yet. He knew he needed a little more to knock Joe Lockhart off the top. He got his race win. He was looking for a freestyle win. Zane trying to get that clean sweep. Watch what happens here. That is a very, very expensive flash fire as he just popped that Steve Schmidt motor. Zane not able to take the lead.
You come up to that truck, it just like you were finding a little bit out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just blew up a brand new $30,000 Steve Schmidt race motor. Not exactly what I wanted to end the night. I heard it knocking really bad when it shut off down there at the end. I told my guys in the back to stay off the track. I'm going to run it for all it's got. The light of that motor is ended. There's some holes the whole way through it. So anytime you guys want to stop by the merchandise stand tonight and pick up the Stinger t-shirt, my wife and I would certainly appreciate it. Thanks guys, and we'll see you next year.
Didn't take the lead, but don't think he can put on a show as he left the track with some fireworks. One more to go, but the problems would continue. Keep in mind the transmission issue that this truck had at the beginning of the night. They thought they had it solved. Unfortunately, they did not. There went an input shaft. That burst of sparks you saw out from the cradle, that was the end of the road for the Saigon Shaker. Ryan Disharoon said he was just about to put that truck 25 feet in the air when that happened. Joe Lockhart was able to hang on to the checkered flag for one more week.
Yeah, man, you know, that's not exactly how I like to win it. And our team's like, I don't know, I got a great guys behind me. I really wanted to make that last racing pass. I love racing with Zane. We're always really close at the end. Got a lot of tore up stuff. I just put a really consistent run in with the freestyle and hoped it was good enough without tearing up the truck. I was able to stand it up there. Just can't be thankful enough. You know, we got a lot of great sponsors. Wayne's Towing and Recovery and Hooker Harness, and just everybody affiliated with this team. means a special lot to me to have my son back. He's back on tour the rest of the year with me. Haven't seen him on the weekends since January. We've been in Florida and all over the country. He needs to finish up school, so he's with us till Halloween now, man. It's really special to have him back. Congratulations.
A little bit emotional, winning close to home third straight week with Logan there. These fans got quite a show from all of our Renegade competitors. So we wrap things up for the night. In Brookville, we would get ready to head to a wet, wild Sealands Grove, Pennsylvania. That'll be coming at you next time here on the Renegade Roundup. Do not miss it. And if you're looking for tickets, you got to get out and check it out live. RenegadeMTTour.com or the Renegade Monster Truck Tour on Facebook. Come and see us. We will see you next time on the Roundup.